will let her know that she will always be loved. Yeah.
It feels like there's like 30 years of stories to catch up on.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, you beautiful bluebirds, and welcome back to another episode of Deja Blue. This is your girl Blue here, and I'm super excited to be chatting with our beautiful guest today, who comes on the podcast quite often. If you're not familiar with who Reverend Briana Lynn is, then you need to listen to Deja Blue podcast, episode 11. Season 1. Also, there's many other ones that I don't know off the top of my head that you've been a part of.
Yeah.
And we filmed another one recently, all about money. And today we're going to be sharing some more insights. But first, let me give a little introduction to Reverend Briana Lynn. Whoop, whoop. Beautiful mentor, guide, sister, co-creator, and really ultimately just this human being that is ready to get wild with me in the desert. Mm-hmm. Like, I've had some like times with dirt in my nails and just like by a campfire eating potatoes with, we didn't have any salt, so she just like chiseled away at a salt lamp.
It's true.
Like actually happened. She was like, we don't have a salt with us, but I do have a salt lamp in the car. And we're just like chiseling away, and we're just like been in the dirt of our own shit, and quite literally like not like
metaphorical shit. We were in our metaphorical shit on a nature quest.
My own feces. Anyways, so this woman is not afraid to get completely wild. In fact, she actually does this as part of her offering, is she rewilds individuals that have become overly domesticated. Like the little poodles that we have at the end of a leash that are like, doo, 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 and they can't survive without us. That is just years of domestication of what we've done to dogs. Well, she basically undoes that to humans.
That's very well explained. Yeah. I unpoodlefy humans. Yes. Put that on my bio.
Have you ever had that?
No, that was great.
Delivered that?
Unpoodlefy humans.
Yeah.
That lands.
That gets to be on your business card moving forward. I think it's probably one of the best one-liners to describe you.
For sure. What do you do for a living? I unpoodlefy humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense to me. As well as many other things, she is one of the co-founders of the Earth Temple School of Prayer and Shamanic Arts, which is really guiding individuals to reconnect to their relationship to nature and recognizing that there is no deity, priest, god, or shaman, medicine woman, medicine man that is in between us and spirit, but our relationship to the fact that we are actually nature. And she reminds us through the Earth Temple of Shamanic Arts. And we just finished and completed a year-long program together, CFT, Sacred Circle Facilitator Training. She runs trainings, immersions, ceremonies, and everything in between. She also had a podcast, which will probably be get back up and running at some point with my encouragement. And yes, master of all traits, I would say. A library of information that comes out of this woman's mind and mouth and heart and yoni. Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Pussy. Yeah.
Either way, whatever you want to call it.
That's what I call it.
And just all around inspiration. So it's such an honor to have you back here on the podcast, my love.
Thank you, Blue. It's always a joy and a pleasure to be here with you.
I've introduced you so many times now. I want to keep it fresh every time.
I love that. Yeah, every time it's different. You're doing great. The unpoodlefying is definitely a new edge that we get to. Now you got to outdo that next time. We're going to find other really weird metaphors. Like how weird and strange, but accurate can these introductions.
Accurate.
It's very accurate.
Like a pinpoint kind of
Full
experience.
On. You will not be a poodle after you know me.
I look like a poodle before I spend that time with you, and then I come back looking more like a
wolf.
Wolverine.
Yes. Wolverine.
I'm into it. Alrighty. So today we're going to talk about miracles in the mundane.
Yes.
And this is just something that has been a topic that is really ripe for me, specifically with my 40 days of devotion. Hashtag, if you're not on that train, it's not too late to start. And realizing that to be human and to actually enjoy this human experience while we're plopped on this really interesting planet that is just a lot of it doesn't seem to make sense, like the systems that are in place, or just the way that we relate to money, or the way that we relate to each other, or the division, or the wars, or like none of it really makes a whole lot of sense of why and how did we even get to this place in the first place. And what we do have is our breath in this moment. And so how can we, Reverend Briana, Lynn, please enlighten us all, find the miracles in the mundane?
I love this topic too. I love this topic mostly because this is probably something that I've run away from most of my life. I'm what you would call a people-pleasing, champagne bubble moment chasing adventure seeker. So most of my life can be told from these moments of deep death. Sagittarius, full on. Come on, I have like Sagittarius in 8 different places in my chart. Like it's very much this moment of wanting to be in the edge of ecstasy at every moment. And in my late 20s, when I hit my Saturn returns, and it was like one edge of ecstasy moment after another, I was like, I'm enough. I just want a routine, right? And I really committed to a rising ritual right around 28, 29. A morning practice that had me do the same thing every day, and it got kind of boring. And I sat with this boringness, or what I identified as boring.
Did you get benefit out of it before it got boring?
Yes, definitely. I found myself being able to breathe more in situations where I would have normally reacted, not take things as personally. I was doing my master's degree at this time at the United Nations University for Peace in Costa Rica, and it was 57 students, or 157 students from 50 different countries around the world. And so the cultural clash was really poignant, very much felt. And being a white presenting woman from the United States who's trained in academia in a certain way, specifically to be very forward and very loud and to interject myself, I was coming to clash with a lot of students, specifically from Japan and South Korea and even the Middle East, where interrupting the professor or interrupting another student was an exact opposite of what their culture was. Whereas coming from a high-performing United States academic background, it was like, you need to get your voice heard. And so, and my background is in socioeconomics. And so in a lot of econ classes, which are mostly male driven, I had the vice president of Nike's son in one of my classes. Like, to get my voice across, I had to metaphorically have a bigger dick than anyone else in the space. And so I was trained in that academic light. And so at this time, my paradigm around how I shared knowledge was radically shifting. And so meditation, daily meditation, came back into my field. And at the same time, Gene Keys was a big part of my integration. This was, between 2012 and 2014, and really looking at these pieces of my addiction to the champagne bubble moments. And the champagne bubble moments are anything that you would cheers about, right? Like a great cathartic death that comes with some sort of lesson, right? Like, it felt like every emotion I had to have a reasoning behind it. Like, I needed to make meaning out of everything. And while there's beauty in that, there was also this heaviness to it of almost weighing down. Rather than feeling the feeling fully, I found myself putting meaning on it before the lesson was fully digested. And rather than enjoying the champagne bubble moment, I could feel my mind start to hop to, when am I going to have this again? Instead of fully enjoying the orgasm, it was like, what's happening next? The lack of rapport that I had with the present moment was so much so that I was very much future living. What's coming next, the vision for the future. I spoke from a very inspired place around possibility. And while I've integrated that into my current reality, what I really want to bring forward today, and I want us to have a discussion on, is the power of finding God, goddess, love, orgasm, pleasure, divine connection in the moments where it seems like nothing's actually happening. In the moments that aren't posted on Instagram. In the moments where we wouldn't necessarily share it on a podcast. Like, one of the most beautiful moments of today was my lover telling me how beautiful I was. There wasn't anything beautiful about me. I hadn't gotten ready for anything. It was literally, we were on a hike and I was kind of sweaty and like a little bit irritated about the subject we were talking about. And he just looked at me and said, "You are so beautiful." And it like had me I even break out a little bit of sweat right now because it's like something in me that's like, do I have something in my teeth? Like, is there something wrong that would have him say that without me having presented as beautiful? If I haven't prepared myself to be complimented. And I have this way of like being able to accept compliments when I've tried to do something, tried to make it sound good, tried to look good, like that performer, people pleaser energy that I'm still unpacking in my own system. I find it easier to accept compliments in those moments when I'm in my natural state and just flowing and just like as I am, and someone gives me a compliment. There's this part in me that's still a part of the consumerist hierarchy programming that says I need to earn my keep. And that in order to actually receive a compliment, I had to have done something in order to receive it. Mm-hmm. And the miracle of the mundane is actually dropping into the beingness, right? We spoke about this a little bit on the Money podcast of like the intrinsic value of just being alive. Mm-hmm. Like if I were to have no consciousness or not ability to speak in a language, or I, for some reason, went offline, was in a vegetative state, of awareness, that my breath in and of itself would still be valuable to this planet. That's the miracle of the mundane. The miracle of the mundane is noticing the texture of the water as I wash the dish. The miracle of the mundane is paying attention to the footsteps in between point A and point B. The miracle of the mundane is honoring goals, but also understanding that it's very likely that most of us will never achieve the goals that we set out to achieve in this lifetime, and that 99% of our spiritual curriculum doesn't come from the achievement. It comes from the step-by-step mundane monotony that it takes to build something of greatness. Mm-hmm. It's like we celebrate that moment where we cut the red ribbon and champagne, but really what that is representing is the thousands of mundane moments of asking the mundane questions, of supporting someone through an emotional process that feels like it has nothing to do with the vision, of answering the phone call about the question that's been asked 800 times. My relationship with the miracle of the mundane is the difference between enlightenment or suffering.
Mm-hmm. What was the thing that shifted for you, where you went from champagne popping moments, chasing the adventure and the high and the excitement and the celebratory moment, to dropping back into this the mundane? I don't say dropping back, but presenting yourself into the moment. And was it something beyond just the practice? Was there something that...
Yeah, I think it was the daily practice combined with getting back into nature as teacher, mm-hmm. and spending a lot of time around the fire. And in my last partnership, he and I were very much focused on leading nature quests, and that really had me drop into that space of what does nature teach me primarily? Mm-hmm. And what nature teaches me primarily is that love is happening all the time. It's the bee landing on the flower. It's the flame licking the oxygen as it builds up into the sky. It's the sway of the tree in the wind. It's sure we could see a mountain lion and that's amazing, but most of the time when you're in nature, it's pretty mundane. And I think that's why most people miss the lessons of nature, because they're like, nothing's happening. Like we have to play badminton or something in nature. Like we have to go hunting or we have to do something in nature. But what most of nature is doing is just living, eating, making love, breathing, and it's enough. Nature isn't achieving anything, and yet everything gets done. Mm-hmm. And this overemphasis, especially in Western academia, on achievement, it burnt my nervous system out. By the time I was 30, I was like, I want to retire. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I'm tired of feeling like I need to be somewhere else other than right where I'm at. I'm tired of feeling like I need to be skinnier or prettier or with more money or with a different car or with a different human partner or better relationship with whatever, with a list is unending what we can push ourselves to in achievement. Mm-hmm. And understanding that gap between being present with what is versus constantly achieving, like that space was starting to like stretch me, like physically hurt me. So spending more time in nature was definitely one of them. Continuing with my rising ritual, spending more time in nature and being in nature as a recipient of what it has to teach me rather than what am I going to go there to do? I'm going to hike. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to hunt. I'm going to learn. No, like literally just listen, to just receive from the moment. And in that moment springs forward infinite amounts of wisdom that is felt in the body. It's not even words. It's not even something that I could convey in verbal transmission. It's a felt experience of peace, of oneness, of not needing to do or achieve anything. There's nothing else to heal. There's nothing else to transform. There's nothing else to fix. Granted, there's all the things to heal, transform, and fix. But in that moment, the healing happens by no longer needing to heal anything else. The healing happens when I release the need of what healing is supposed to look like. And that paradox of by doing nothing, everything gets done has become a part of my daily life. The third piece, I would say, is understanding the relationship to goals and achievements as directionality rather than if I achieve them, I'm good, and if I don't, I'm bad. Directionality is to move in the direction of as if the thing I desire or see is going to happen while being completely unattached to if and when it happens. So moving as if that's what's happening. And if it doesn't happen, that's totally okay too. Completely committed to the vision and completely non-attached to the results. And that has allowed me to wash the dishes a bit more slowly. Granted, I can still get in like the hustle of the mundane. Like I've got something important to do there for the moment that I'm currently in, and the mundane task of whatever it is isn't important enough for me to put all of my attention into. And that's actually where we miss life. When I think that there's something else to do.
It's not easy.
No.
To come back into the present moment.
No.
Like I'm on day 30 of my 40 days.
Congratulations. That's huge.
Thanks.
5 a.m.
Yeah, I'm pretty exhausted.
You're doing great.
When I sit and I'm in my meditation, specifically because I'm doing evening practice as well as morning practice, and it's the same practice, I sometimes it takes me half to 3/4 of my practice to get out of wanting to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got 10 more breaths to do. And it not until I get third of the way through and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm fully back in the present moment now. And it's like super peaceful and my body's completely relaxed. And that's 2.5 hours every day for 30 days straight, right? So it's like, I realize that the more distractions that I have filled my reality with and created, the harder it is for me to come back into the present moment. There's so many layers to it. And I feel like this reality is set up as distractions. And something that Andre said that I don't know if this is an original quote from him, but said that our attention is our spiritual currency, and that everybody's fighting for our spiritual currency, and the practice is to retain that spiritual currency and then start sending it in the direction that we actually want to bring more fruit to. And that is the result of a practice, is to be as spiritually rich as possible, to then be able to spend it in direction of I'm fully present with you when you come over to the house, and I'm fully with you, or when I'm with my lover and we're making love, like my mind isn't drifting, I'm fully enriched in the whole experience. So when it comes to the renegotiation of coming back into the present moment, do you have specific practices outside of like a morning practice, but like when the mind drifts off during the day, is there anything that you do that brings it back into the moment and essentially over a period of time refines it so that it starts to becoming the default?
That's such a great question. Two things come up for me. One is what we teach in SCFT and pretty much all the work that I do, which is breath, sound, movement, touch method, BSMT. And it's a really simple, you can do it right now, literally breathe. Just connecting our conscious choice, connecting the mind with the physical activity of a deep breath brings us into this present moment. We're breathing all the time naturally. When we choose to breathe, it connects that which can go forward and backwards in time, our mind, with that which cannot go forward and backwards in time, our body. And so it brings them both into this pin drop of a moment. So breath. Next would be intentional sound. So on the exhale, creating some sort of the vibration of the sound in our body activates the largest nerve called the vagus nerve, which starts in the center of our crown, goes down the front of our body, all the way down into our pubic bone.
Is that the nerve that pops out of the vein?
It's right behind the vein. So the vein will pop out, but the nerve is right behind it. So it's the largest nerve in the body called the vagus nerve, and it's activated only by our own sound. So making sound actually helps relax the vagus nerve and get us back in the body. What does it mean to be present? Let's define that before I move on to movement. What it means to be present is when our mind, our body, and our emotions are all right here. When I'm thinking about the past or thinking about the future, that's not present. That's imaginary space. Imagination 5D is not in the present moment. It is out of time. It's quantum, which is a beautiful thing. I'm not against the 5D. If anyone knows me, I love the 5D. But the 5D is not the 3D. The 3D is defined by time and space. Time, space, and humanity creates the three corners of the triangle of the third dimension. The quantum, the 5D, is the tesseract, 2 points that can be moved together and you just jump from one to one rather than needing to travel on a line. So we can understand that we can utilize our mind to 5D to travel intentionally into the past or into the future or into other realities. But the thing is most of the time, people's brains, minds, systems are being hijacked by concerns of the past or worries about the future. Most people are not intentionally traveling to the future and the past in the 5D. Most people are being hijacked by their concerns or their worries that take them into those memories or into their potential future projections. Mm-hmm. So to get fully present, we've got breath, we've got sound, movement, actually intentionally physically moving the body, cathartic movement, embodying emotions, and then physically moving through the body is another one. The final piece is touch, self-touch. Touch from another can bring us back into this present moment. It's the choice. It's the choice to be here, focusing on anything, focusing our senses, focusing on what we taste, what we smell, what we see, what we hear, what we're saying. The focus on sensory experience can bring us fully into this present moment. Sensory experience can also bring us out of this moment as though a way to scratch a concern of the past or a worry about the future. So the senses are a tricky one because in our culture, they've been hijacked to help us not feel something about the future or to help us avoid a worry from the past. But the senses are actually one of the greatest spiritual tools to bring us into this present moment when we learn and commit to that being our intention. Mm-hmm. Of using the senses to come more here now. But it's a practice, and it's a relationship with wanting to be in the mundane. So much of what is fancy about Instagram or about the world right now and achievement is that someone is going to be the next Kim Kardashian or the next Chris Brown or the next fill in the blank. And my interaction with superstars, albeit limited, the number one thing that I hear from them that they miss is just being able to walk down the street
Mundane.
And be a normal human and not need to be whatever character that Hollywood has made them out to be. Mm-hmm. That they actually miss just going to the grocery store and picking up a candy bar and not having to bring in their security guards with them. Mm-hmm. This idea that we're all trying to achieve something great is the very thing that's keeping us from living in the greatness of what it means to be alive now. And my curiosity, and I would love to hear you speak to this, is how do we honor the mundane, like the moment to moment, while also dreaming big, while also wanting to create a fempire, while also wanting to see the world in a new way with food for everyone and buildings that are actually eco-regenerative and opportunities for money systems that are all-inclusive and beauty and joy and orgasmic pleasure for all beings. How do we hold simultaneously the miracle of the mundane while also having a big dream?
Mm-hmm. Well, to go back to your original point, I have chocolate all over me. Well,
great.
that's an exhibit A of me wanting to constantly get that next high.
Or just enjoying your senses in the moment,
Depends how you look at it.
or how you're being it.
I definitely was a champagne popping, like in the sense like I actually don't drink alcohol, but like that concept of just living for those high moments. And I actually did something the other day where I was like looking through my camera roll. Oh no, I was looking through my highlights on my Instagram of like all of the beautiful things that I've created, and it was like a time capsule. Come on. Really
She's inviting her puppy up to her chair right now, so we're just gonna give her a break. There it is. Little Snoopy Brown is here.
Hello, everybody. My name's Snoopy Brown, and I'm here for the podcast.
She's actually the star of the show.
And I found myself getting like almost a little sad looking at it, because it was filled with the mother tree and tribe and nature and gatherings and events and painting and like so much play and adventure. And I was like in the bathtub, like haven't really been around tribe much, haven't played much music. Like it was easy for me to be like, what am I doing? Like I miss the mother tree. I missed the gatherings. I miss tribe. I miss. And it was like that yearning to be somewhere that I wasn't. Yeah. And also ultimately when I zoom out, I was looking at a highlight reel. And what was happening was also as beautiful. I was having a soak in my beautiful home. My lover was asleep. My dog was laying by the tub. I had scrubbing myself because I'd just been body painted. Like
So good.
It was actually really, really beautiful. And this is me clocking my mind of being like this yearning, this consumer mindset that wants more, that wants to be somewhere that I'm not, and therefore creating suffering. And my 40 days of devotion that I've set up is to learn to navigate how to be completely at peace and at home in my breath, while also building a queendom. Like with everything with the podcast and everything that's been created, there's a bigger vision for all of this, for fluorescence and everything that's going to be created moving forward. So I'm in the inquiry around it, but what I'm being shown right now is to eliminate all of the super highs and to come back to making sure the house is clean every day, making sure I'm going to the DMV, making sure that I'm ticking all these boxes, making sure that I'm doing my practice every single day, and starting to allow that to be integrated with the version of me that is super spontaneous and off to go do this and gonna go see my friends and create some random art. I'm gonna go to this gathering, and that's all really beautiful. But if they're dominant in either or areas, then this is actually where a piece of integration wants to happen. And right now I'm in the integration of two realms. And another piece for me that's really helping me is to track my cycle, my moon cycle, and understand that there's going to be
You just got the
days-
same app as me, by the way. That's so fun.
Flow.
We love Flow.
By
Flow
the
wants to
way,
sponsor
let's
us.
have a look at this real quick. So according to today, the app is Flow, by the way.
FLO.
FLO. If you have a moon cycle, then this is definitely
It's
an app
free.
that you want
You
to
can
get
pay
on.
for like their extra little things, but I've been using Flow since 2012, and it's just a great way to know your day. We should do a whole other one on moon cycles, a whole other podcast on moon cycles.
I've done one with Layla, but I definitely want to do another one in more in depth.
Yeah.
Estrogen rises today. Progesterone is high and rising, which means that I may have anxious moods, obsessive thoughts, and a bit of acne.
Yeah.
So this helps me also understand when to book my podcast, when to have my clients, when that I not. And then what that does is it allows me to go on Tuesdays or on these days, I build the queendom. On these days, I'm in the mundane.
Yeah.
And it's actually syncing with my hormones as well. Yeah. So that is something that really helps me to be able to soften into the mundane while also build a queendom.
Because the mundane essentially is the glue between all the other moments that we post on Instagram. And I would say the Instagram moments are 1% of our life, and the rest is 99% mundane. And I don't know Justin Bieber personally, but I would imagine his life is pretty much the same. Like even people who are in high stardom, 90% of their experience is still going to be getting from point A to point B, signing the document, working on brushing your teeth, like remembering, even if you hire out all of the mundane tasks in your world, most of what we humans do are what nature does, which is a whole lot of nothing. And in that nothingness, we find ourselves scrolling on our phone. We find ourselves mostly being in the vortex of the screen, which is a whole other dimension, right? The phone and the digital world is a different dimension. It's not the third dimension. It actually doesn't accurately represent time and space. It does not accurately represent emotions and felt experiences. So it's not 3D. And I think it's really important for people to understand that when you're on the phone, you're actually missing the mundane. And the mundane, our relationship with the mundane is in direct correlation with how much we can source our own happiness.
Can you say that one for the back?
Yes.
For the people in the back, like, holy shit, wow.
Our relationship with the mundane, those I'm doing nothing moments, those I'm washing the dishes moments, those I'm picking up the gum wrapper from the floor moments, the quality of presence that we bring to those moments is in direct correlation with how much we can source our own happiness.
Yeah, I know. It's specifically what you shared about social media, the scrolling, the moment, what we do with those moments. Like, I feel a lot of my in-between moments just like on my phone. Just like endless amount of people to respond to. I try and respond to all of my Instagram messages, and that is like pretty much the majority of my in-between moments. And then wondering why I suffer so deeply in the in-between moments, because I'm such a high achiever and want to be in the next champagne popping moment, or be in the next pop body painting, or be in the next podcast, or launching the next program. And then in those in-between moments, I question my life, like to the point where I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I need to be in Mexico in the back streets of Oaxaca, like with the medicine women, like not sitting in a city in Venice Beach. And then I question my relationship, and I mean, it's like momentary flashes, but it's like, and it is directly linked with how I'm spending these in-between moments. And this is a huge part of my 40 days of devotion.
Yeah. It's fascinating you say this, because I've been in the back streets of Oaxaca with the medicine women, and 99% of what we do is pretty fucking mundane. Like, it's not in ceremony. It's not having these great catharsis. It's like going to the market to buy chilies.
Yeah, but Simi, that's exciting to me.
It's super exciting until you do it for 3 months.
Right. And then
until you do it for 6 months. If you're just visiting for 3 weeks as a tourist, sure, you can exotify their mundane, right? Like, what we have the privilege to do as white presenting people who could go in for 3 weeks anywhere is we make it exotic that we're going to the market to buy chilies. You do that for 90 days, it's boring as fuck. And you're right back in the same loop of like, why am I not answering my Instagram messages instead of still buying chilies for Maria on Saturdays? Like, why am I still doing? It's because the mundane is our relationship with our inner voice. The mundane is the place where we can actually feel how much of ourself is here or not. So yeah, it's exotic for 3 weeks to go to the market and be in Oaxaca. And then 3 months in, we're bored as fuck. That's the reflection of our own relationship with our deepest self. I want to know who you are in the moments when nothing is happening. Can you be happy with the company you keep with yourself? Who are you with no phone, no makeup, no presentation, no clothes? Who are you? And that's what nature asks of us. That's why so many people are afraid of nature quests and spending more than like a night out there, because there comes a point where we face off with our boredom, and it's the biggest devil there is.
I talked about this on the podcast with Nick Onker, and how there was an experiment of people that were placed in a room, and there was nothing. It was white walls, nothing to look at, completely plain. Yeah. And they had to stay in there for an hour or something like this. And they were also left on there was a table, and on the table there was only one object, and it was a taser, like it electrocutes you. And the majority of the people would rather electrocute themselves than actually just be with the nothingness. Like, they need that sensation, and even if it was painful, it's like zap themselves, than to actually be in the miracle of the mundane.
100%. I mean, There are so many reasons why being in the present moment can be scary. For people who've had trauma, childhood trauma, generational trauma, being fully in the body can be very, not only frightening, but feel like death. So the need to live in the past or live in the future or be so distracted by the senses or by drugs or by something that takes them out of what they're feeling currently is a result of trauma, is a result of their body or their emotions or their mind being in so much danger that they thought they were going to die and they literally left their body. They had a little death.
You said something about this in fluorescence the other day that like hit me to the core of my being. Was to revisit our birth story.
Yes.
And see how that correlates with our relationship with our bodies.
Yes.
And when you said that, I've had this thing, and whenever I'm in meditation, I'm like, why do I have the hardest time like being in my body? And this has been a huge part to play with my distractions, my addictions, my desire to be somewhere else that I'm not. And I never got to the root of it. I never understood the root of it until you said that the other day. And I revisited my birth story, and I was a C-section, and my mother had a broken back, and she was on all sorts of epidurals and whatnot.
And who knows what kind of pain medications and
I was cut out, and I had jaundice, and I was put in an incubator for the first parts of my life, just in this plastic cage, and it like hit me like a cannonball to my chest. I never thought of it like that. The relationship between my birth story and my relationship with my body and my desire to be somewhere else.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden I had like so much like compassion for myself, as opposed to beating myself up that what am I doing? Is it bad for me? Like, and just like thinking that there was something wrong with me. And, Reggie sent me a video, and she said, after you told me that, Blue, I wrapped up my sweater as if I was holding baby Charlotte Victoria. And she said she held me and nursed me for 3 hours, my little baby spirit.
God, she's such an angel. Thank you, Reggie.
Yeah.
We love you. That's incredible.
She was singing to me and nursing this little baby spirit. And she like fell in love with my little baby.
Did your mom nurse you?
For a long time.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I was breastfed for a long time. My mother, like, I was her like life. You know, she did the best she could, and she had a broken back.
Yeah.
Didn't have much choice with the C-section. She couldn't push.
Yeah.
And I came out with jaundice, so I had to be put in this incubator.
So rough.
But I didn't even register.
Yeah. So this is huge. And I encourage all the listeners to learn their birth story if they're able to, because the birth is our first imprint of being in the body or not. So if our mother is in the body, the baby is in the body. If mother is not in her body, baby is not in the body. Without wronging anyone's pregnancy, to receive an epidural means that mother is not fully in her experience. The baby will not be fully in their experience. And that's the imprint that they receive in their spinal synovial fluid, that when things get tough, I leave my body. When sensation gets too high, I leave my body, pleasure or pain. 90% of women cannot orgasm without visualizing something other than what's happening. What the fuck is that? So I'm not even just talking about pain and trauma. I'm talking about sensation in the body. Our capacity to be with sensation in the body is in direct relationship to how much we can be with the mundane, with how much we can source our own happiness. The biggest hijacking that has happened on this planet is that we are sold things in order to make us feel here. Like, I'm buying this thing, there's so much sensation, there's this transaction that happens, and I have this sensation of being in the body, and then it's gone. I have to buy again. And advertisements and this consumerist loop has been given to us as the way to get into our body of sensation, when it really only brings us maybe down to our throat, maybe into the solar plexus, but doesn't fully activate the heart, and definitely doesn't get us down into our root, our feet. The only thing that gets us into our root and our feet is us intentionally going there and releasing the trauma of either too much orgasm or too much joy or too much pain and too much sensation into difficulty when our capacity is cut. that how much joy and how much pain we have a ceiling on either side, that limits our ability to be with the mundane. Because the mundane is going to bring forward a lot of feeling. Anything we haven't felt in the past and anything we might feel about the future is going to come present now when I actually get still. This is the number one thing that takes people out of meditation. They start worrying about what it is that they said or what it is that they're going to say, or what they bought or what they will buy, or who they fucked or who they will fuck next. Like fill in the blank, right? The number one thing that takes us out of meditation is sensation. So if we can be with the sensation, if we can actually increase our capacity to be with pleasure and to be with pain fully, we will have the ability to be more in our bodies in every moment. Yeah, rebirthing would be amazing for you. Or when you are activating plant medicine, to have it be more about being here. So much of meditation and spiritual work is like third eye and out. And there's a whole other dimension of dissension, the feminine path, that gets to be explored, especially in Western culture at this time, that helps us be more here now than anything else. The process of meditation isn't about leaving. It's about coming home. It's about being more here. It's not about forgetting or erasing things with a mantra. It's about getting so present here that I find God in every moment. No matter what's happening, whether it's a great orgasm from physical stimulation or just orgasm from noticing the pores on your nose. Like that's available. The availability to feel God in every moment happens when I'm no longer needing something else to be taking place than what is happening right now.
I'm like having like my whole reality sort of deconstructing and reconstructing in this moment. Like there's so many pieces. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm a little bit like, for once on my podcast, a little speechless, to be honest.
We so often look for out-of-body experiences, and you're having an in-the-body experience. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my practice really, I mean, specifically in the morning.
Yeah.
In the evening, I've picked up a lot more noise.
Yeah.
But in the morning, and I don't have like anything right after where I'm like, oh, I've got to make sure this is an hour or less because I got something afterwards. And I've woken up with an ample amount of time and it's super early and the sun's not up yet. Like I'm quiet and I live for that. Like it's juice for me, and it gets better and better with the more days that I'm in my practice. But it's been a perpetual thing my whole life, where outside of being a tennis athlete, a college athlete, where I was forced to be in the body, in the sense like I was forced to train, like that was part of it. Outside of that, I've had so much resistance to physical exercise, and I just make up so many excuses because it demands me to be in my body, and I just have not understood why. And when I sit with plant medicines, I experience being very much in my body. Stretching and breathing and yoga, it feels amazing. And I pray, please, when this is worn off, please let this feel as good. It never does. And I think that that's also chasing then, okay, well, then if I sit with Santa Maria or if I sit with this, I feel better in my body. And it became like a striving again, more striving to be somewhere that I'm not, and just wishing and praying that the relationship to exercise or to being in my body was actually one that I really enjoyed, instead of trying to procrastinate and put off. And I haven't found the root until now, I don't think. So first acknowledging the root, and I share my personal story. I mean, well, one, because this is Deja podcast and
that's what you do
this
here.
is what we do here. And secondly, because I feel like this can relate to so many people, specifically with our current system and the birthing situation that we have. That is the normal. Rebirthing, you mentioned.
Rebirthing.
I don't want to just type into Google rebirthing ceremony and just get the next click for somebody that's available. This is a very precious process for me. So do you have any suggestion?
I mean, you could study it. I know one person in this area who does it that I trust. But the process of just visiting your birth, like just becoming aware as much as possible. The great thing about rebirthing that I appreciate is it's a hypnotic process. And so even if you don't have information about your birth, the practitioner will regress you to that moment of being born and get you there. So that's nice, is you don't have to have information. However, if you do have your mother or someone who is at your birth, my suggestion would be to learn your birth story. If it's videotaped, watch your birth. Like, learn the birth story. What was happening the months leading up to your birth? What was it like being in your mother's womb? What were her challenges? What was going on in her mind at the time? All of these things are going to be deeply imprinting the child. These are our first imprints of reality. Those first 9 months or however many months that we were gestating create our basis of reality.
So, super vulnerable, classic. In the 9 months gestation period when I was in my mother's womb, my uncle passed away in a very horrific way.
Her brother.
My mother's sister's partner, like love of her life, fell out of a window onto his head and died slowly in her arms. Like, horrific.
Yeah.
While she was very pregnant with me. And the trauma of
died in your sister's arms or died in your mother's arms?
Died in my sister's arms while my mother was witnessing the whole thing and had to bathe her and get the blood off of her afterwards.
I just got chills all over my body. Yeah. So you experienced that.
Well, my mother lost interest in having me because of the trauma.
Yeah.
It took away from her joy of the pregnancy.
100%.
For like obvious reasons. Like, there's never been a moment she hasn't loved me. Even today, I feel that to the core of my being. And like, I have this like very deep fear of being rejected.
Mm-hmm.
And it like is just always with me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's so like close to the surface.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know how to rewrite that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because not only am I disconnected from being in my body, but I'm also like just so afraid of not being wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's one of my core wounds.
Yeah.
And I haven't known how to rewrite it. No matter how many plant ceremonies I sit in or meditations, it still kind of follows me like this like ghost that's just like,
yeah,
I'm back.
How old were you when Mom experienced this?
I was in the womb.
Do you know like what month approximately?
No, I think she's probably about 6 months.
Okay, so like 6-month-old Charlotte in the womb, right? Like just imagining that little one for a moment, like feeling her feelings as Mom is in that like dissociating, like I'm not even interested in this pregnancy state. Just connect with the little one in the womb, like make eye contact with her for a moment and just breathe with her and let her know that you are there and that you will never reject her. That's the work, is remothering. And then stepping into your mother's experience for a moment, like toes in her toe slots, fingers in her finger slots, feeling yourself pregnant with this child that like you can't feel right now because of the trauma.
Uh-huh.
And just letting that be okay. Because then there's the guilt of not being connected to your child. Like just let that be okay for Mom for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of other work that we can do, but this specifically and regression work, which I do, this is specifically what I do. I don't do rebirthing, but I do regression work, especially womb work with women. Just building rapport with that little one and visiting her again and again and again. Whoever rejects her in the world, as long as you don't reject her, she's going to be okay. Because there is no such thing as rejection from another. There's only self-rejection.
Which I do.
Right. Because that's what you learned. Because that's what you learned is safe. You survived, right? Like you survived that experience. So once we survive an experience, our nervous system tells us it's good. There's no like qualities of good within our amygdala, which is our animal brain. It's either survive or not survive. So in those first specific 7 years of our life, while our brain is still doing 95% of our brain development happens between in utero and 7 years old. So during that time, we're receiving the imprints of the world of survive, not survive, survive, not survive, survive, not survive. You survived 100% of your experiences, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So all of those imprints from 0 to 7 are considered true about the world. You can survive rejection. Can you survive not rejection? Yeah. And so you have both of those in the field. And so for you to continue to revisit your little one and let that one know that not rejection is also survivable, because the first deep imprint that that one experienced was, I can survive rejection. And it holds on to that, especially when chaos happens in your world. It's like, if I get rejected, I know I can survive all of this other stuff. I don't know if I can survive this new thing, but if I reject myself a little bit, I know I can survive it. And it's this really sweet way that we stay connected to our patterns because we know we can survive them. We don't know if we can survive new patterns. We don't know if we can survive actual thriving because we haven't yet. We know we can survive the things we've survived. And so we keep them on repeat out of desire to survive. It's actually really, really innocent, right? So like connect with that 6-month-old in the womb again and just eyes to eyes, heart to heart, toe to toe, breathe with her for a moment and just let her know she not only survives and makes it through this, she's going to have other options by the time she's 30. Like just send her that message. Mm-hmm. And notice how her little nervous system's like, oh, okay. Rejection's an option, but not the only option. Mm-hmm. What else would be useful for that little one to know right now?
That she'll always be loved.
She'll always be loved. Let her know. From your heart to hers.
Oh, there's so much there.
Yeah. Let her feel it fully, like in your mother's womb. Let her know that she will always be loved. Yeah.
It feels like there's like 30 years of stories to catch up on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. To get to that truth. Mm-hmm.
And just for the purposes and intents of what we're doing today, just connect that little one and just grow her up with just like a thread of knowing she will always be loved. It may not be loud, but just notice like 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months out of the womb through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way up through college, through the time, all the way you sitting now. Even though there were doubts, there is still that thread of knowing you will always be loved. And in this moment, it gets to bloom. And then if you just, a year from now into the future of like cultivating that relationship of you will always be loved, imagine where you'll be in a year. Completely different experience. But it's always been there. Mm-hmm. Even though now we're imprinting it into the 6-month-old. Quantumly, you get to experience now how it's already always been there. And find it in your body where it's always been there. And if you were my client, I would have you be doing growth work every day of like journaling a page from the 6-month-old to you and you to the 6-month-old. Dear Charlotte, you are always loved. From the 6-month-old to you as an adult. Dear Charlotte, you are always loved. From the adult to the 6-month-old, and then just free form write. What wants to be said? What wants to be felt? What wants to be integrated? Because it's already always there, but there's pieces, like you said, that want to be further integrated.
Oh, I didn't say go in this direction.
I mean, it's mundane.
It's mundane.
This is why most people are afraid of the mundane. I think it's very poignant what you brought up. Most people are afraid of the mundane because their 6-month-old in their mother's womb did not have an experience that felt okay to be with the mundane. Mundane means that we let our guard down, that we're not trying to do something just to survive. That's a really vulnerable, like the miracle of the mundane is the most vulnerable place to be. It's actually relaxing our nervous system and not needing to protect or prove ourselves. That's really the hardest thing for most humans to do. I'm not protecting or proving myself right now. Not on the podcast, not with you, not with any, like, that's vulnerable. Mm-hmm. The miracle of the mundane is true enlightenment. I'm no longer trying to prove or protect myself.
Well, I have some curriculum to sit with in front of my altar.
Yeah. So sweet, that little one.
You're good at what you do, you know.
Yeah, I am. Oh, Schnooby agrees.
Go on the table? Or make a show of it? No. Well, I think this is a really beautiful place to close it out.
Yeah.
The miracle of the mundane.
The miracle of the mundane.
There's no better place to be.
Podcast that we've done.
Whew. It's a juicy one.
Yeah.
Don't cry often in the podcast, but when I do, pulls on the heartstrings.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody's interested in working with you, Briana, or wants to continue to follow you, continue to receive the codes and the wisdom and the nuggets of which it is that you bring just by being you, how do people connect with you?
Yeah, theearthtemple.com. Sign up for our newsletter. You'll get all the information about all the things. And the best is on social media. I love answering messages like 3 days a week, so don't be offended if I don't get back to you soon. At Rev Briana, 1 N, Lynn, 2 N's. Rev Briana Lynn.
Amazing.
Come look me up. I'll talk to you.
Full of knowledge, full of wisdom. We'll keep having you back on Deja.
Yes, please.
The bluebirds love you.
I love them too. Love you, bluebird.
So good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
So good.
Yeah, I agree.
So good. This is like literally ultimately the best part about having a podcast for me is to be able to receive from the guests in real time the wisdom and the nuggets and the insights and not only do I get to receive, but so do so many others. And it's just medicine. It's pure medicine. And I feel educated and more knowledgeable. And like I just had like a full coaching session with you. And but then it was also like an opportunity for others to be a part of it whilst keeping in the authenticity that the cameras don't exist. And this is really my why behind all of it is to medicine across the board for everybody involved. So I'm so grateful that it's living up to the vision of what I saw it to be.
It's truly amazing. Like the people that you bring on here have such unique frequencies and medicines to share with the planet, and it represents all these different little lotus petals of who you be. I think that's what's so beautiful about your podcast is it's a fractal representation and metaphor of how I see you. And so you bring on these people who emphasize or quartz crystal this one aspect of who you be. And it allows us to get to know you through these other conversations and beings. So thank you. And if you want to hear more, you should definitely support Blue through her Patreon, which the link is in the comments section or whatever it's called, the show notes. And sign up monthly because we made some really good behind the scenes that only the patrons get. So sign up for her Patreon, okay? Thanks, guys.
It's pretty. The Patreon is fun.
It's so fun.
And it's small. It's intimate. There's not many people there right now, but there are
It's like
people that are there.
$33 a month that you're asking, which is like lattes a week. Come on, guys.
And it supports the podcast.
It supports the podcast. We want to create more videos, and I would love to have Blue pay me. So like, get on it. Come on. I'd love to have Blue pay herself first, and then she could pay the guests too.
That's the dream.
I want it.
Alrighty, well, if you resonate with this podcast and you feel like it can inspire and uplift somebody else, somebody in your family, somebody that may never be able to reach or hear about this podcast without you sharing it, then please feel free to share it on your Instagram stories. Link, do a swipe up option if you have that option, and tag us at Rev Briana Lynn and at Blue of Earth in your stories so that we can see that you are listening and sharing. It means so much, and recognizing this message is not about us. It's about, well, us as individuals, but it's about us or for us, for the collective.
The whole shebangle.
The whole shebangle. I love you.
I love you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so vulnerable. Beautiful. You tender heart.
And to all of you beautiful bluebirds, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, I love you very much. Blessings.